Hey there, guys. Jon Gums here with Dakota Grappler Live. Just coming on a Sunday breakdown show, talk a little wrestling with some great guests tonight. We got Bill Holtan, my right-hand man. He knows everything. College, you name it. He doesn't know everything, but I just say he does, of course. But he's been awesome this whole year. We've done probably 10, 15 videos together already and talked a lot of wrestling. On the bottom, we got Rocky Burkett, our Northern State wrestling coach for several years now, doing an awesome job down there. Have a great time at his golf tournament. I know they're booked up in the summer. We took second. Rich Vogelide needs to get another ringer. So then he can just drive a cart around and service adult beverages. and then down the bottom, we got Tom Schoenhard, my Rapid City connection. He great man. I'd love to get to meet and know him. And he's having a good year, and we're all wrapping up our high school seasons. We've got some exciting college stuff to talk about too. So I'm going to start off with Bill. What's your first take this evening? I was so excited to watch the Wisconsin and Iowa duel. That was another good one. I was excited. I watched the NDSU duel last night with Troy Steiner and Fresno State. I've got a lot of college stuff, a lot of high school. I was at a duel this weekend, Century, Watford City, Williston. Always have some wrestling. The Big Ten Network is probably one of my best friends lately with all the wrestling on. Bill, what do you think? What's your first take?
Well, probably the biggest thing that I saw happen this weekend on the Division I side was when Michigan and Wisconsin dueled and Mason Paris pinned Anthony Cassiope. It was a really dominating performance by Mason Paris. He's made huge jumps, and I kind of remember back when I watched those two wrestle at the in Fargo, and it was completely dominated by Cassiope. So at that time, Mason was a real true sport athlete. Football all summer and fall, and wrestling the rest of the time, and he's really made some big jumps. So that was big. I will say on Division II side, I was I don't know if it's shocked or surprised or pleasantly surprised, but seeing Minot State go out and win a duel against a real tough Augustana team yesterday, I thought that was kind of a big deal. So those were two things that jumped off the page at the weekend. There was a lot more, but we'll kind of hit them as we go.
Okay, awesome. And then down Rocky, what do you think about your team with this last weekend? We'll just give you a little snippet. Actually, introduce yourself. You're the first time being on the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you started out in wrestling, basically.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess starting off, Bill mentioned Mason Paris, so kind of a little shout out to Indiana. That's where I'm originally from. I started wrestling when I was in 7th grade, just kind of got into it. I guess by accident, because I wasn't very good at basketball or track and field or anything else. So started doing that, and then had a really great high school coach that kind of came on my freshman year and kind of got me into things, and then just transitioning on to college, and then came out here with the opportunity for a grad assistant position and with Coach Pat Tim, and did that for a couple of years, and then stayed on as an assistant working at the college, and then had the opportunity to go to Aberdeen Central for a few years before coming back to Northern. So, I've been out in the Dakotas now for, 15 years. So I guess I consider myself pretty heart and soul when it comes to the winters and stuff up here. So I'm ready, and really enjoy it up here and the people and the wrestling. So, that's kind of how I got here to Northern and how I got involved in wrestling. And, thanks for having me on tonight. So,
oh yeah, will be fun, definitely. And Tom, what's your take for this evening? This is Tom Schoenhard. You could introduce yourself again.
Sure, it's Tom Schoenhard. I'm West River, affiliate for the Dakota Grappler, and thanks for the opportunity to get on again. It's been a few weeks. We're getting ready for the state AAU tournament, and our meetings are on Wednesdays sometimes. So I've missed a few, but we're kind of winding down with the season. In South Dakota, we've got a couple weeks here, and we got regions coming up, and there's kind of some end of the year tournaments here, and so we're just getting ready for the end of the season push, and we're excited about that and trying to get kids healthy. There's a lot of kids sick and banged up, so we're hoping everybody's healthy for the state tournament.
Well, awesome. I do see your Kansas City poster in the background.
Yeah, I think my wife changed that out. I had the old golf picture, but after last weekend, we had to break the stuff out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Congrats there.
Yeah.
I've never been a Kansas City fan, but I rooted for them because I go back to the days when old Steve Young took out the Minnesota Vikings. So
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And so I was going, oh, let's go Kansas City this year.
It was a good day.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, I tell you what, you guys had a big weekend. I'm going to start Tom right away with a little bit of stuff down there. You guys were down in Yankton, really tough tournament, and you guys are still not quite on 100%. Are you guys really close, or what?
Yeah, we've got a couple kids that were out for the weekend. We went down to Yankton, and I know Pierre wasn't at full strength either, but Watertown was. They kind of dominated. And they've even got a couple extra kids that don't fit in their lineup perfectly, but they look good and they're going to make some noise at the state tournament. If they're healthy, and they wrestled well and they got some bonus, and so it was interesting to see them. I got a chance to see, I hadn't seen Lucas Anglin wrestle all year, and got a chance to watch him wrestle this weekend. He's obviously one of the best kids in the state. It was fun to watch him, and it was a good tournament. Some of the teams weren't all full. And there was a couple B teams there in Wagner and Bonhomme. That KJ St. Pierre at 220, boy, he's a
dude.
He's a man. Yeah. He's a good kid. And, I got to watch, the Warren kid from Yankton, returning state champ, wrestle against Boeing from Pierre. And actually, I'll mention too, Warren went up and wrestled Navarro Shunky in a duel. I think Thursday or Friday night, bumped up to 220 and beat Navarro in overtime, the 8th grader from Brandon. But, kind of one of those matches that you don't always get to see. And, kudos to that guy for going up and wrestling. So, it sounded like a great match. And, yeah, we're just kind of on top of Yankton. We're getting down to the duels, and there's quite a few left, actually, this next week. There's some makeup duels with the weather, et cetera. So that's starting to sort itself out in South Dakota.
Well, we'll discuss a little bit on the PowerPoints too. And Rocky kind of blanked out. I'm not sure if his daughter caught his phone for a second or what, but I think he'll pop back in. Hopefully he does that. But now South Dakota's coming through. There he is. He's popping in the bottom. I'll get him back in here in a second. It says his device is not connecting, so he'll get on in a second. There he is, popping in. But no, you have those PowerPoints, and you're working through a system, and I'll give South Dakota a lot of credit for at least getting it out there, and then they'll kind of work out everybody might not be 100% on board this first year, but I think, you got to go through some growing pains again until you get it how the state wants it, how the teams want it, and it best fits, the whole scenario. Wrestling needs to have the duel. It's just too important team-wise, and, I will talk that it's really done wonders for North Dakota, and I know we had to go through some hiccups along the way before we had it mastered and how we need it for our state.
Right.
So tell us right now in South Dakota the PowerPoints, who's looking like the top teams, at least in the Class A.
On Class A, I think Pierre is PowerPoint and number 1. I think we're actually 2, Watertown's 3, and Brandon's 4, and based on the East-West duels, we had lost to Brandon and Pierre a few weeks ago. So it all depends on your schedule and how many duels you have. And I think it's even some teams are dueling some teams and they might win, and it doesn't necessarily help them. So I think there's some confusion out there. I think people are definitely paying attention to it now because, for example, in the Bs, Canton is ranked 3, and they might be the best dual team in the state.
Yeah.
A and B probably are. So I think, just figuring that out, and kind of understanding. And there's some teams, that go out and duel out of state. There's some teams that duel some B teams and some A teams. And, and it may get, may have to get picky on your schedule a little bit, in the future, which hopefully that doesn't happen and doesn't hurt anybody from getting duels. But, we had John Donovan on about a month ago, and, he was struggling to get his duels because he's kind of positioned in that ESD area, and they kind of lock themselves into, with all sports when doing their
old conferences,
their conference stuff,
and more and so forth. Yes.
So there's some important duels. I think Watertown duels Pier, I think Friday night, or this week. And so that'll be interesting. But there's still some duels out there that matter. We've got one this Thursday against our crosstown rival at Rapid City Central. That'll be our last duel. We'll have 9 total duels. But there's teams that have 30 and some teams have, fewer. So, it's kind of one of those things that, you just, everybody's getting used to it.
Yeah. Still making it there, Rocky.
Yeah, the audio kept cutting out, so I've been trying to rejoin a couple times to see if it gets better. So
okay,
I'm back on.
Okay,
Rocky, what's your feeling on the duels in South Dakota? I know you've been to the North Dakota State tournament a little bit also, and as well as probably several others. But
yeah, I think it's good for them to get started again, back to have it, and obviously. It's tough maybe for some of the smaller schools that aren't able to fill out a full team, but I think that also is good in the long run because maybe that'll get more kids that see that team side of things. And, maybe some of those smaller schools can start filling out some bigger rosters and growing the sport a little bit more. This will be the first time this year that I've been to the state tournament since they've combined it even with the classes, just taken as a regional. And, it is the same weekend as a regional this year. It just happens to be next door to it. So I'm going to pop in on Saturday. So I'll be interested just to kind of see the fan base and those types of things, to see kind of how it's changed having A's and B's together. So I think, overall just combining it and then also having that dual aspect of it, I think is pretty big just for it. And I know when coming from Indiana, it's a one class only sport. So, I mean, when you get to the state tournament, there's only 160 kids. So you may not have as big of a following because there's not as many kids there. And you may not have kids from some of these smaller communities that make it there. Or if they do, it's a pretty big deal. So I think, you can take 10 to 14 kids to the state tournament and know that, even though you may only play 7 or 8 of them, every kid, that's pretty cool when you're in that setting because, even a kid that maybe is not going to place for you, but he wins one match, that could be the difference in winning the state tournament or not. And, I think just giving those kids the opportunity now to also do that in a team setting with the duels, I think is pretty cool.
Yeah. I'll say, on the North Dakota side, I've seen that happen, a number of times where we've had kids that did not qualify. They played a really big part with their team in the duels. And those are that kind of a two sides to that. One that brings more fans, right? You get all of a sudden, you might have a team that qualifies 6 kids for the state tournament. It doesn't happen as much on the Class A side because there's a lot more qualifiers
per capita.
Capita. I mean, they all make it. I mean, but on the Class B side, there are a lot of. I mean, there's you got to be in the top 4 of your region, which. We pretty much get the right kids there all the time, but not everybody's there, so I've seen that happen quite a few times. And I will say this year on the Class A side, I know at least 2 teams that are going to make it to the dual tournament that haven't been there in, maybe Devil's Lake ever and
right.
Jamestown in 20 years, so those are really big events. Those are going to bring more fans from those communities into Fargo and into the Fargo Dome. So that'll be a lot of fun. And the Class B side is kind of, it looks like, it's a lot of the same teams that have been there the last few years, but it's really a great event. That Friday night's lights out.
Right. Well, I'm real curious to see how many kids we take because they didn't cap it, and we've talked about this. So, for this year, it's not limited to 17 or 18 kids. I have not seen a cap yet. So, we could take a lot more kids to get them in that arena and get them used to that. Let them warm up, and give them that experience so that when they're sophomores, juniors, and seniors, when it's their time to step in the lineup. They're not going to be uncomfortable with that.
I think it makes a huge difference, just team aspect, because, South Dakota still has to adjust theirs. They allow as many as the coach wants to bring along. but the experience of having to weigh in multiple days in a big tournament, I know that Century will probably bring, we'll have our 17, we'll probably only qualify 14 for state or so. And that brings 3 extra guys that will have an opportunity to see a chance and be part of the team. That'll bring their parents, their grandparents. It'll bring other people just to the event. And I know that happens several different places. The 3 extra guys, I still wish South Dakota would find a way to do that. North Dakota is unique in the Class A's, and I'll give them a thumbs up. You can qualify 17 in the individual. They just have to go into the region. You get 3 extra guys to go, and all in the Class A teams, it works out where you got 2 big heavyweights and only 1 guy gets to go. And all of a sudden, guess what? They're going to be in the regions to try to make a spot for the state team. And it's unique, and I love it for Class A. I wish Class B, they'll fight it for about ever, but I still wish they could do it.
I do too.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I mean, I think there's some concern that one of these years we're going to have a bye in the state tournament, at a weight. Probably, well, it could be on either side, frankly. It could be the A's or the B's. And I think until that happens, that conversation won't start, right. Or maybe won't get as much traction.
Right. Your numbers in South Dakota have been phenomenal, though. I look at the total number of teams when I go around. Now, I know a lot of the smaller towns, they've been doing a good job keeping their programs together, and that can't happen forever without the combining of schools. And
right. So, yeah, and those co-ops, it's funny because, some of those co-ops cost money, and then they've got to arrange busing, and depending on how far you're apart, it might cost $500 for the year to co-op with somebody. And some schools might not want to pay that money to co-op, or bus or arrange transportation. So, it's especially tougher out West River than East River because those towns are a lot closer together,
Now for the state tournament, have they got you a job, Tom?
Not in Sioux Falls, no. If it was in Rapid, I just do whatever I'm told.
I thought they'd hire you there too.
I would if they wanted me to do something. I certainly would, but it's fun to be a parent too, with my kid wrestling more now. So, but just like this weekend, we were in Yankton, and this is kind of a crazy story, but they have like a YMCA connected to their gym. And for $1, my 12-year-old and his cousin from Madison were able to go in there, play basketball, go swimming, and run around for half the tournament for $1. That's like a cheap babysitting, and they met a little kid from Watertown, and they played video games, and they were swimming and having fun the whole day. And I guess we knew he was close. We just didn't know where.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that was awesome.
See, my dad was a wrestling coach, so when he took me along to tournaments, he would go and buy me a bracket, and I'd have to fill it out. That was my fun. I didn't get to go in the pool or nothing.
It's funny. You see a lot. I saw a lot of people this weekend keeping track of that, even though your phone can do it and you can take screenshots there. Of course, some of the ranking guys were there this weekend watching, and it's kind of cool to see. It's like going to a post-22 baseball game, and some of the guys that have been around a long time, they got a scorebook and they're keeping track and they don't miss nothing. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I'll make a quick story out of this. You know how wrestlers, little kids, now you've been a lot of little kid wrestling tournaments. Well, we used to go to a place called Center, North Dakota. They had a wrestling program, and they had a pool in the school. And so during the wrestling tournament, one of our wrestlers disappeared. He was getting called, and Shannon Johnson. In fact, he was an All-American and he's in the Hall of Fame in North Dakota. But my dad says, "Where could he be?" And I found him in the pool. He said, I'll wrestle sometime during the day. No, you've been called. You're going to have to forfeit. He went out there all wet and just put his swim trunks and a T-shirt on it and went out and wrestled. But
right.
Definitely. Well, let's talk about Rocky, your last weekend here. You've been wrestling pretty well. I'm impressed. In reality, you're in the toughest region possible to qualify. Tell us a little bit about your team and how many, realistically should be looking like to qualify this year. We got your pause there. Can you hear me, Rocky?
What's that? I got now again, Joe. Or John, sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just saying that you're having a great season, and in reality, you're looking at the toughest region that you're in. How many you think, in reality probably could qualify for the nationals this year?
Yeah,
Might have
I just
Bill
I
answer.
guess how many qualifying for nationals and stuff.
Yep. For yours out of the super
I
region.
think that's what
Okay. Well, Bill, what do you think?
Well, I got an idea. Well, we talked about it a little bit last week, and I would say the team has looked pretty sharp. I mean, there's, it's one of those things when you look at this region, it's the top three that make it out of the super region to the national tournament. It's a little bit special this year because the regional tournament is in Sioux Falls, and so is the D2 national tournament. So, not that these guys are going to push any harder this year than they normally do. So can you hear us, Rocky? Now you got us.
Yeah, I'm back. It works for about 30 seconds, and then I cut. Then I can't hear you guys again. So,
all right.
John,
hey, what we're looking for?
Your team. Yep.
Yeah, just qualifying at nationals and everything.
Yep.
You just keep speaking. We'll listen.
Yeah. Okay. It's one, like you said, it's one of the tougher regions in the country. So I mean, we know that going into it. So I mean, there's nothing we can do about it. You just got to show up on that day and compete really hard. And for us, I like our guys. I mean, realistically, there's we could get 5 or 6 guys. We could end up with 2 guys. It just kind of depends on who shows up that day and how guys compete. And I think I said when we have the right guys competing at their best, there's an opportunity to get 5 or 6 guys. And if you have an off day, it could be somewhere through it. Just kind of depends. And obviously health is a big issue too and factor, and making sure guys are feeling their best that way. I know a lot of teams the last weeks, and I think in this area, whether it's high school or the flu and those types of things, there's been a lot of that around. So hopefully that's all taken care of by the time the tournament rolls around, and like getting our 10 guys that are going to be out there feeling really good about themselves and being as healthy as they can be and really prepared to go. I mean, realistically, most of your work's been put in already, the preseason and up till now, as far as the physical stuff. I think now it's just getting through these next 2 duels that we have and sharpening our skills, getting ready for that region tournament. So it'll be fun.
How about some recruiting yet? What do you think of your recruiting class so far?
Just you say recruiting, where we're at with recruiting right now?
Yep.
So like I know right now, I mean, obviously on kids that you haven't signed or that you're currently recruiting, but like right now for next year, we have signed 9 kids NLIs. We have 3 South Dakota kids, a couple kids from Nebraska, an Iowa kid, a California kid, and a Wyoming kid right now. So, I mean, the South Dakota kids, we got Brendan Salfrank, who's from Aberdeen and here a couple years these seasons. It's also placed down in preseason nationals, so I think we're pretty excited for him. He's a bit bigger, but for the 125-pound weight class. But 125, you bring kids in, think they're going to be lifetime 125-pounders, and then before you know it, they're 33 or 41-pounders. Where I think Brendan's a lifetime 25-pounder, and I think we got a kid from Stevens right now that's been doing a great job at 125, Landon Fisher, and he might be a lifetimer too. So, a couple good kids they'll be battling out, and then we have a kid Michael Bigler from California. We're bringing him at 125 too as well for next year. He's California State Place winner last year, so I'm excited about him. And then one of our 2 other South Dakota kids are from Watertown. Ty Altoff at 132 right now. He's ranked number 1 in the state. I think he won the tournament down there in Yankton yesterday.
He did.
2-3 kid, and then he was that outstanding wrestler up here at the Lee Wolf tournament a couple weeks ago. So yeah, it was good to get those kids. I was teasing Ty. He's going to be Brennan's. I think they're going to be roommates next year. And somebody was giving Brennan a hard time about not winning OW at an event, and I said, well, his roommate will just stick it above his bedroom and let him remember who won it. So.
No, that's pretty good.
And then, the other in Watertown is, Sam Stewart, Watertown. So, really well. Won that Yankton tournament yesterday, I think, as well. So, kind of cool story. Him and Ty are double cousins. I call them double cousins. Their moms and dads are married to each other. So, it's kind of cool to have them join our family. They're already family as it is. But now to join, I'm really pretty excited. So.
Well, that is pretty cool.
And then we also have, and like I said, we got 9 kids signed, and we're still working on a few more, but probably 13 to 14 kids by the end of the season is what we're looking for next year.
Rocky, I know you. We just had senior night here last week, the night of the Dickinson duel, and had 3 seniors that were honored that night, and you've got 9 coming in. How many do you have in the room right now?
Did you say how many seniors we have now, or
how many in the room?
Yeah, to talk about our seniors now.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, right now with our seniors, we got who's been doing really well for us in California. Went against Dickinson kid, lost to him, and but he's beat a couple ranked kids. And then we obviously had Carr and Riley Lura from Carrington, North Dakota, all that night. Walker's able, so he's been great to have Walker in the room, and obviously it's cool to see Walker and Billy go out together. I don't know if I'm trying to they've even been able together because they've both been injured at different times, and my plan was also to get Riley in there too, but Riley's been out all year with elbow injury, so it's kind of unfortunate for him this senior year to like I said, I was hoping to get all 3 of them out there on the mat, especially for our last home duel. But really, those 4 kids have been, and Billy's, so he'll still be around. But just those 4 came in together, and they've done a tremendous job for us, and kind of holding the fort down, on us when I took over with the program, and they put a lot of trust into what we were trying to build with everything, and so it's been cool to, they've been through all the struggles that I've been through, so it's kind of, I can always kind of talk about when we have a tough day. I'm like, hey, remember when we had to do this though, because we only had 15 guys on the team, and so it's kind of cool to have those 4 to kind of reflect back on where we were 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna kind of say my piece here. This team has come such a long ways, and there was this group of kids, Billy and Walker and Riley and Kenny Jones came in from California, as well as a couple other kids in that class that haven't continued on. But it's really been a great evolution. I think that Rocky has done a great job. He's had a couple of different assistants, and they've all been really, really helpful, and they've done a great job. And these kids are not only becoming just better wrestlers, because we're seeing that every week, but just better humans. And these guys have done a good job in the classroom, and it's obviously a sense of pride for the staff, and how hard that these kids work, both in and out of the wrestling room. So we've been real proud to be part of this program, and I'm excited to see where things go in the future.
Awesome, Rocky. I think you are doing a great job too. Every time I see you got more kids in the room. And if you do blank out or whatever else, if you have to reconnect, feel free to do it anytime, Rocky. It's good.
I know Rocky's had a hard time hearing us, but I'm going to kind of touch base. We had that duel the other night. We had kind of 2 duels here recently. Minot State, Northern had a great duel, looked really, really tough up there, and then duel against Dickinson, and Dickinson is got a pretty good program. They've got at least one kid that's ranked number 1 in the country in the NAIA. Sydney kid that, we've all watched, 4-time Rotary champ, and Dane Morton really, really wrestled him tough and came away with a loss. But I was really, happy to see how that, pardon me. That's, I guess I should say, Gresh Jones, from Sydney, and
yep.
So they had a, and then, like Rocky said, we had a Walker Card in the lineup at 157. He wrestled the North Dakota prep, Berg from Wahpeton. So that was kind of fun to see. And then Billy was in the lineup after being out for about a month with an injury. So he wrestled another North Dakota kid. So a Dickinson kid, Tate Norby. So we've seen this. I think that the all-time record is Dickinson has won more duels than they've lost in that battle. So that's nice to see us get a couple wins in a row for Northern, and it's good to see both programs doing pretty well. Dickinson the night before put it on Jamestown pretty bad, so that's a pretty good wrestling team. In the future here, Rocky, we've got a duel next Saturday against Mankato at Mankato, which is I guess they're the second best team in their conference. They had a nice win over Upper Iowa here the other day, and then to round out the season, Northern State will duel University of Mary. It's the first Thursday, February 20th.
Yeah, February 20th.
Yep. Yeah. So that's a makeup duel.
Where's that at?
Yeah.
Aberdeen.
It's in Aberdeen.
Yep. So
I tell you what, my wrestling season is usually done by then. I might have to make my way down there.
Well, that's the Thursday of state.
Oh, it's the state. It's not the weekend after. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I couldn't do that then.
Yeah. Well, you could, but it would be a little tougher on you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you guys will be at the state duels probably.
Yep.
So, besides that, anything else you'd like to add, Rocky, about your team and some of these guys coming up?
He's trying to hear us. That's okay. Well, okay. Okay, let's just keep moving on. Let me talk a little bit about North Dakota wrestling. We did have our region dual tournaments in North Dakota this last weekend, and we did qualify 8 teams. And so if you want, I know Bill's probably got an idea. I didn't look to see how it got seeded. If it should have came out of Valley City today. Did you look at that?
Yeah, I didn't see it yet. I looked earlier today and it didn't come out. So the 8 teams that came out were from Region 1. It was as expected. Lisbon was 1 and the South Border was 2. Region 2 was Carrington was 1 and Pembina County North was 2. That's a duel that was overturned earlier in the year. Pembina County North beat Carrington earlier in the year, and Carrington's kind of really a little bit of a different team just because they've added a few numbers. So those two, Region 3 was Velva over Bishop Ryan. So those are the 2 teams out of Region 3. And Region 4 was New Salem and Hettinger. And Hettinger actually had to win a true second match there to qualify. So those are your 8 teams. Like I said, and Tom, we talked about, I was going to mention this earlier. This used to be, they were prearranged, right? So number 1 would wrestle one, it would change every year, right? But number 1 would wrestle number 2 out of a, different region. That's kind of how it all went. And maybe 2 or 3 years ago, 2016, maybe it was the first year, they started seeding that tournament. They'd seed the top 5, I think. They were going to do the top 4. They seed the top 5, and then the other 3 they draw in.
I'm guessing it's probably going to be Lisbon 1, and I'm actually thinking Ashley Wishick will be number 2.
Well, we better call them South Border, although we're running out of the state.
But South Border, still thinking is going to be number 2. Just looking at East-West results.
I don't know how you would put them any other way. I mean, although the only thing I could see happening is that nobody else has wrestled South Border. So, I mean, in a duel. So
Right.
it's a matter of if they use dual results, it'll be, you know, you got South Border with a few, you know, a couple of losses. They're second in the region. I could see something weird happening. And if they do it that way, then all of a sudden you start thinking, holy cow, could they actually end up on the same side of the bracket? You know, if they say, hey, Lisbon's 1, South Border, if they're not 2, now we got a whole, you know, now maybe it's New Salem's 2 because they beat Carrington in a duel early in the year.
Well, I was thinking that probably as long as South Border is on the opposite side, you probably want to see that New Salem South Border duel on the other side. If that's 2-3, I think that would make sense. You might put a Carrington 4. You might put, I'm thinking out of that side. And then you go the other side, you got the Velva, a
Right.
5, or you take the 4-5. So at least they meet, you know, somewhere along the way so they don't have to meet the South Border. That would probably be your best right there. I'm thinking, right?
Yeah, it'll be kind of interesting. I know, you know, 2016, I think was the first year they seeded it, and that, you know, whoever got 4 or 5 they were both unhappy, you know, because they got to be on the same side as the 1, and
right,
and that year was
and they have a tough first duel. Yeah,
that got to be kind of a sticking point. I think if I remember right, you know, we were 1, Carrington is 1, but and Bishop Ryan was 4. So then, you know, then they end up having a tough duel in the, you know, first round, and then they did come through it, and then they had, you know, us in the next round. But yeah, they were a little irritated. They were hoping they were going to be 3, of course, you know.
right.
But so
then,
you know, that seeding is not perfect, right? I mean, it's seeding like seeding is, and it's different than the PowerPoints. So I'd be, you know, it's when you don't duel everybody, it's hard to, you know, and sometimes, you know, if they use tournament teams to do it, it's hard, you know, they're not, right. That's not always the same.
Right.
So that's one thing they added this year in South Dakota. They added the combination weigh-in, Billy, so that, you know, the tough part is it's hard to drive. I mean, outside of the ESD, you know, we're not driving across the state for a duel on a Tuesday, well, you know, on a pick a night. But they added that combination weigh-in to kind of encourage teams to do it Friday night to only count the tournament and the duel as one weigh-in.
Right.
And they did that this year, what was good. But our top 8 teams as of today is Piers 1, Stevens 2, Watertown is 3, Brandon's 4, Sturgis is 5, Harrisburg is 6, Madison is 7, Del Rapids is 8. And you know, that isn't your top biggest schools necessarily. And I think there'll probably be some changes in that. But, you know, that's what it is as of today with the PowerPoints. And I hadn't even checked if everybody's already got their 8 duels.
Right.
You know, if we'd have got snowed out in Pier for East-West duels, that was 4 of our 9. We wouldn't be in.
Right.
You know, unless you had to figure out a makeup and, you know, whether or not you wanted to do it depending on when that was and if it worked. And the weather has not been a good friend this year in wrestling.
Yeah.
So,
well, you guys got a lot more snow at times. Kind of all the snow stayed south, and we didn't get hit quite as bad in North Dakota.
Right.
Well, I tell you what, here's the North Dakota Class A, if people don't know that. Yeah, the number 1 seed, and they go east and west regions. The number 1 out of the west will be Bismarck, and they will be facing number 4 out of the east, which will be West Fargo. And then on that same side of the bracket, you're going to see the number, let's think about this. You will have the number, well, it'll be Century, the number 3 seed from the west, going against the number 2, which would be Devil's Lake. And then on the bottom half of the bracket, you would have the number 1 out of the east would be Valley City going against Jamestown, which they just dueled this last Friday. And so they have a traditional duel. So that'd be interesting. That's been a duel. It's been very close. In fact, that's the second time they dueled each other. And it'll be the third time at state. So opening round, I still believe the West probably can win all 4. But the other one on that side of the bracket would be Fargo Davies, which is the 3 out of the east facing the number 2, which would be Minot. And so it's going to be an interesting state duel tournament, definitely. Also, that's what you can see in the Class A. Yeah,
I saw that West Valley City won that duel again. And I did see that Jamestown did try to do a little bumping around and change things. It it didn't probably accomplish what they were hoping to. But
no, it was a 2-point victory the first time, and then I what was the difference in this one? Do you remember?
6-6 maybe or something like that.
Okay, because Jamestown has really improved. I interviewed their coaches this last week.
Yep.
And I tell you what, they're still very young. So, for considering the Class A size of schools, and they're in the bottom third, if not one of the smaller schools, for numbers of students, they're doing real well.
Yep.
I'm going to sneeze here. Well,
don't do it.
Rocky texted me and he said, thank you guys. He apologized. He wanted to apologize to you guys for having the bad connection. And
it's all right. We'll do better.
Got to hear what he was talking about at least. And
he's going to have to go to campus and do it next time. They probably have a little stronger Wi-Fi.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, absolutely. That'd be pretty.
But he probably doesn't. He probably lives there, so he doesn't want to go there.
Yeah. Oh, probably true. Yeah, definitely. And so, one more thing about high school wrestling. I know that the Class A and Class B have their regions next weekend. And so it's going to be a barn burner. There are a couple weight classes I was looking at when you get into Region 1 where there's 5 guys in a couple weight classes that it's going to be really close. And then in the West, a little easier. Some of the main, if there's going to be ranked guys, should make it through. Again, I appreciate Mitch Greenwood. You're going to watch this eventually. I appreciate everything you're doing. You're putting a lot of posts on the Grappler and get some good conversation going. Some people put the Dynamite dozen in for North Dakota and started to rank.
I saw that. Yeah.
And I thought that's been pretty good. I'm going to have to for some reason, we're really busy at school right now. We got so many things going on. I haven't had time even on my break to even peek online to do anything. And then my son's in the mix of now wrestling varsity. And so he's gonna get to wrestle regions and state in the duel. So I'm
good.
Kind of a proud papa there a little bit. So he was weighing 140 and he's wrestling 152 because they're now clear there. They're open. So he's won that weight class, but he probably should be wrestling 38. but we just happen to have the number 1 kid in the state at that weight.
Right.
And they need a 52-pounder a little bit more. So kind of like we had Storehog on, he is definitely better than a forfeit.
Yeah. There you go. Yep.
But he's now 12 and 15 on the varsity season, so I'll take that as a freshman out of his weight class, but definitely so that should be good. Stay healthy. He's getting twisted up. He's my last name Gums kind of works for him. We call him Gumby because he gets twisted around pretty good. Yeah.
Good.
But a lot of fun. Always as a parent, you're off to the side, and it's a little bit different feeling. Having your kid out in the mat, even as a coach, you think you get over it a little bit. Yeah, not quite yet.
No.
Yeah, it's I kind of went through that, and I was not probably all that good at it, but the last couple of years it was fairly easy, at high school, and then you get to college, and then it gets really hard again. So, and it's as you guys know, I mean, you grow up in the sport, and everything that happened is so personal. It's such a personal sport that, when you get a guy that gets, when you have a kid, and he gets it handed to him, it hurts, it hurt, how it hurts for him, and so, yeah, there's been those moments. And I know that, Rocky's wife is a saint to put up with all she does. And she asked Billy one time, I sit Matt's side there at the duels, and she asked him one time, she said, is it weird for you to have your dad right there yelling? And he said, oh boy, I wouldn't know anything different. If I wasn't there, I wouldn't know what happened. But yeah, so it is fun being a wrestling parent. There's no doubt about that. You guys are
well, my son got in an inside cradle and the guy walked his leg up, and he kind of like I talk about a pretzel, he had his leg behind his head and over by this other ear. And I was going, oh man, I know that hurts.
Yeah.
And I was going to myself, I want to yell out potentially dangerous, but I know it's not. It's just like,
yeah.
I tell you what, in Yankton this weekend, Rocky had brought up Ty Altoff, and he wrestled Riley Williams from Lennox. And I've watched that young man wrestle quite a few years now, and he's dynamite too. And there was a ton of, it just seemed like interesting positions, a lot of leg passing, a lot of weird positions, and you're always worried somebody might get hurt or there may be some pressure on a hamstring or a knee or whatever, but I don't envy those referees. It gets tough. And of course, all the two birds get out, as the referees call them. Everybody's yelling for two or whatever it is. But there was enough quality kids at the tournament where there was a lot of scrambles this weekend, and you can see. I mean, even we were talking here a month ago. Somebody gets a leg up and they dive for it, and you're seeing it in college. These kids are seeing that, and they're trying to scoop that ankle, and so you're seeing a lot more of that. And it's risky. Some kids get caught, and some of the better kids just wait for them to roll through, and then they just hook back up. So it was interesting to watch this weekend. But even one of our kids faced Hollingshead this weekend, and he had a great match against him. Ended up winning that, but there was solid wrestling this weekend, and for the kids that were there, and hopefully the kids that weren't, they're healthy, so they get healthy. Yep.
No, it's just I had a kid that never got hurt at all in high school, and now in college, it's really been a challenge, and he's a pretty good in those positions generally. So the stuff that's happened's always been weird,
Right.
Weird.
Well, we saw the leg passing in college for the last few years, and I knew it was going to trickle down to high school, but I'm not sure a lot of our referees are ready for it. We have some older referees that don't referee at the college level, and they get in those scramble situations, and they're not sure what to do in a lot of it's like, two, no, which way should I do? Because in reality, who's in control? They're so, it looks like the referee's confused. I've seen it. I saw it twice this last weekend where they passed the leg over the top and then rolled through, and really no one was in control. And the guy was like, what should we do here? And so I think they really need to go through it with some of the older referees on how they're considering control in the match. It's like they're looking for a defensive pin when somebody's passing the leg, or looking for so many.
There was an interesting position this weekend. There was a match where a kid was underneath another one, and they were opposite. He had control of the thigh, and his ankle was up over the kid, and the kid had the ankle, and he was on his back. Well, he had control of both legs, and his foot was kind of pinning him down. A lot of people, even when you're coming out back door, they're starting to see that where they use that leg to sweep them down and hold them down. You're starting to see that more, on the opposite side of they're going to go whichever leg's down. But, you could see the referee and the trail official kind of looked at each other for a minute like, I don't know if we got anything here or not. And they ended up calling stalemate. And, of course, everybody else is yelling, count them, So, I mean, it's one of those things that I think, depending on, where you're reffing and how much experience you've seen that. And I think you make a good point. It happens in college a little bit more. And so maybe you get a little bit more experienced on what you think's control and what isn't.
Well, the interesting thing is a few years ago, this changed, right? And on the college side, it got pretty bad. There was positions just like you're talking about. You'd have a guy on his back for 15, 20 seconds. And, in college coaches, and John Smith, I remember seeing an interview with him, and he said, a lot of that happens, and you got a guy on his back for 25, 30 seconds. He's not in control. He can't be in control of his body if he's on his back for that long. And then the next year they put in the neutral danger rule.
Right.
And I think that really has helped. And it's what you've seen is you're not seeing a less scrambling, but you're seeing better scrambling.
Well, for some of the people listening, explain the neutral danger position.
So in the neutral danger position, obviously, this guys that don't watch a lot still end up, if it's a defensive danger, they still think of it. But obviously, both wrestlers are in neutral. Nobody's got a takedown. One wrestler, if he breaks 90, it's not breaks 45 like near fall criteria would be. But if he breaks 90, the ref will say danger and count 1, 2, 3. And if he stays there that whole time and gets a 3, it's a 2-point takedown. 2-point takedown. And if he's past 45, then he'll start counting near fall points. So that has put an end to it. And the first year you saw a lot more of it. The second year you probably saw a lot more getting to 1 or 2 counts. And now you don't see that many 1 counts. You'll see it. I mean, I saw a neutral danger takedown Friday night in the Upper Iowa Mankato duel, and that, I'll tell you what, you want to see a duel that was a train wreck to ref, but
that will have to happen at the high school level. I've seen too many guys who turn and roll under and hold that leg beside their head, and they're past 90.
Yeah, no,
you're seeing the high school kids mimic that, but they're not going to get any points out of it. They're just trying to figure out a way where they can hip heist around and get it, but they're holding them there, and it's difficult. It's tough.
Yep. No, and you'll see. And I know that there's kids, in the room, and I can watch. I mean, you watch Seth Gross, and he starts scrambling, and he's looking for a way to get that guy to his back. He's looking for that kind of a takedown. And I know, I know other kids are doing the same thing, right? I mean,
that happened between Young and him this weekend. It happened.
Yeah,
you must have saw that match. Young, I was impressed with Young. He went after Seth Gross.
Well, he's very good. Yeah.
Did you watch the Minnesota duel today, Billy?
I did. Yep.
Did you? I don't know, but did you think Mitch McKee might have had back points real quick there or not?
Well, he never got a takedown, so no.
Well, no, I know, but I mean,
but
it looked like
could have been back points.
Yeah.
The problem is, if that's freestyle, that's 8-0.
Yeah, no, I know, but I mean,
but he uses those head pinches,
right?
And he scores with them a lot. But he did get him to his back, but it wasn't. It wouldn't have been in that neutral danger role. And Lee came back, and Nick Lee came back and had his hips back up, and man, it was Nick Lee is a beast. I just can't. I didn't think Mitch could win that match, but when he put him on he did put him on his back twice with a head pinch,
right?
And when he did that, I thought, man, he may actually be able to win this match. But earlier, I was just thinking this might be the one match that Nick Lee doesn't get a major or doesn't get bonus points, and he cradles him up and pins him.
I didn't know if they stayed in that position any longer, if they were going to get down there and
it definitely would have started counting something.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting today. I was watching a little bit of that, and I saw that. And I'm like, wow! And then all of a sudden, boom! He gets cradle, and
Yeah, Mitch is tough. He's strong, and he's got great hips, and he's got good positioning. And for him to get, it blew my mind. And I have been thinking all along. I think Nick Lee's my favorite to win the national tournament. We're going to see him next week. Him and Fletcher wrestle, and that'll really tell us a lot. But Nick Lee is a beast.
And McKee does, and you're starting to see this even on the high school side. When some of those college wrestlers go to their back, they're using their legs to get the guy off them, to prop him over, to flip him over. And you're starting to, that's trickling down too. I've seen that a few times. Kids are getting a little bit more comfortable that, okay, I can go to my back, but I've got to use my legs to make sure that he doesn't land on me and we keep the scramble going.
Right. Yep. Yep, for sure.
Has Minnesota been missing their 25-pounder?
Just this week. He got hurt. Well, last week. He got hurt in the Indiana duel. Purdue duel last Friday night. Hurt his knee. Finished the match. Taped it up, and he did finish the match. And then they forfeited on Sunday against Indiana, and then they forfeited today. So I don't. My understanding is I know they have another 25-pounder that is not in red shirt, but he wrestled 33 last week. So he probably couldn't even get down descent-wise to get, by this week. And they do believe, I thought it looked like it could have been a season-ending injury on Pat McKee. They did mention today that they thought he was going to be back, not probably an LCL tear, one of those that it's bad and hurts, but you can keep going. And I think they have a couple other guys that are in red shirt, and they're not going to pull them out for one duel. I hate seeing college forfeits, but especially at the D1 level and Big Ten.
Well, let's make our college run here. Let's keep talking about this duel a little bit. Any other matches that stick out to you? I know that I watched, Gable Stevenson again, and he looks tough. I'm getting more and more on the side that you think he might not get beat, and I'm getting more that way.
He scares me in the sense that he is sometimes just looks disinterested, and when he goes hard, he can do anything he wants to do, and then he just kind of hangs out for a while. But if someone wrestles him, I just don't think anybody can stay with them.
Nick
If they don't initiate the action, and he has to initiate all the action, he will enough to get a major. Maybe if it's that kid he wrestled today, Seth Neville's is good. He was, I don't know, 190-1 or something in high school in the state of California. I mean, he's 4-time California state champ. He's good, and he's really good on top. And Gable, there was never any doubt of who was going to win the match, but until Neville started, he took a shot, and then at that point it's just all over. He's so fast, he's so quick on his feet. His feet are quick, his hands are quick. He's strong. I mean, just his technique is awesome. If you just watch his technique, his technique looks like the guy that's drilling, 149-pounder that's just drilling.
He moves so well. I mean, he does not wrestle like a heavyweight. No,
it's hard. I mean, and maybe he's just relaxed, but he seems to wrestle relaxed, like you said, almost like an NBA player where they need to turn it on for 10 seconds or go do something they do. And I think he's that good. And like you said, sometimes it seems he might be disinterested or relaxed, but boy, when it's go time, it's tough to stop him.
I'm a big fan, and that's what I said when he. It's just when they see that, you're just like, "Oh man, just finish it," But he, the only guy that's going to push him, I think, is Mason Parris, and I think it's a bad matchup because I think Mason Parris is going to take a lot of shots, and that that could end up really bad for Mason Parris. But Mason Parris, put it on. Cassiope it was really dominant. So, but going back to that Penn State match, Penn State, Minnesota, that was the Mitch McKee. We talked about that. That's still just, amazing to me. 149 Brayton Lee, is really good. And he just gets stronger in matches. And Jared Verclaren had him on the ropes there. And then you just kind of saw Brayton Lee just keep kind of coming back and then
overtime win.
Yep. I don't know. I'll go back a little bit. A week ago, Brayton Lee was wrestling a kid from Purdue, and it was a very similar type situation. And Brayton kind of came storming back, and there was kind of it was right at the end of the regulation. There was a possible takedown that Brayton had on the edge of the mat. Coaches threw the brick in. Brayton grabbed the brick and threw it back. and they're like, he's like, no, let's go to overtime. I mean, he wanted to, let's just finish it. And sure enough, they throw it again. And the coaches and the refs look at him, and Brayton's like, no, 1 minute, let's go. And my wife was watching that, and she just laughed. She said, I have never seen that happen. Have you ever seen that? I said, no. And then we were, and he ends up, goes right out, gets the takedown quick and finishes it. But
he looked fresh today.
Yeah,
I think period and then overtime.
I think he's a definite title threat. So that'll be interesting as the season winds down. They did Princeton pulled a guy out of Olympic red shirt today, Matt Kolodzik, who I think is an instant title threat. Also, that weight class was fairly wide open, and I think he's a guy that could get in the mix too. So, which could be a little bit tough for your Hawkeyes.
Yeah.
Because I think he could move Lugo down a spot. I mean, he's the kind of guy that's, I don't think, Penn State's only going to get so many points at 149. Verclaren's kind of set. He's, he could place, but it's going to be 7th or 8th. So the points that somebody like Kolodzik takes away are going to probably take more away from the Hawkeyes than he does from Penn State. So that's one it could get a little closer.
And another one that's just starting to come around for Penn State in that duel was Joseph is just starting to look good again. He is. I think he looked a little lazier in the season. I don't know what it is, but I don't know what.
He's another one that wrestles so relaxed and just super smooth. And
it's funny that he's never been a Big Ten champion. They mentioned. I did not realize that.
No, he's 2-time national champion. Hasn't won the Big Ten yet. Yeah, no, he
Listening
I'll tell
to some good commentary.
yeah, no, those guys are pretty. Shane Sparks got a lot of energy, and JD Bergman was the other commentator. Was an awful good, bigger wrestler. Joseph's that match, kind of an interesting story. That kid that Bailey O'Reilly that Joseph was wrestling there. He's a redshirt sophomore. But his son is on the Northern State, or his brother's on the Northern State team. So they've actually got 5 boys in the family. I think 3 of them are wrestling in college somewhere right now. Their mother passed away when that Bailey was like he was young. They were all young, and so Dad raised that whole bunch of boys on a dairy farm, and they. Bunch of hardworking kids, and so that was an interesting story there. But bigger for Vincenzo was on Friday night. He wrestled Evan Wick, number 3 guy in the country,
and he
dominated Wisconsin and dominated him. Beat him in every position.
I mean, Wick had nothing for him. Wick's a cradler, and he was getting cradled. I mean, I'm going, oh my.
They had never wrestled before. I think it was actually maybe a rule that they couldn't wrestle. They've been in the same conference for 3 years and or 4 years and have never wrestled.
Because Wick is a 2-time All-American. He took a 3rd and a 4th.
Yep. No, Wick is good. He's tough. He's long. He's that. Yeah. So
usually hard to score on, and it was a domination.
I know. Was that 7 or 8-0 or 7-0? Yeah. No, Chenzo really looked good. So he looked tough. So I was, I guess going into the season, I kind of thought Chenzo was your favorite at that weight class, and Marinelli is got to be thrown in the mix. But there's, Wick. And Marinelli generally have pretty good matches. Marinelli's kind of pulling away there, but that's one there. Isaiah White from Nebraska will be right in the mix there, and David McFadden from Virginia Tech is another one that could beat any of those guys at any time. So
Tom, you watch the whole duel, you catch part of it. Anything stick out for you?
Me?
Yeah,
I didn't get to see all of it. I was kind of bouncing around, and I got the brackets posted last night from this weekend's action, and then there was some discussion of state duels on the message board, and kind of following along with that, and just having a relaxing day. Had a stressful drive home from Yankton, so it was no fun coming home last night. It was awful.
Snow coming in.
What's that?
You guys did get quite a bit of snow then?
We didn't get a lot of snow, but the roads, over in the middle part of the state, it was snowing to beat the band, and it was icy, and then there was some black ice, and it's kind of one of those things where the road gets shiny. You just don't know if it's icy or not, and it's just
temperature.
But that front hung above the interstate last night, bless its heart, and didn't come down. So we were able to get home, but it's about 5 hours to Yankton. So and you're there in the gym from 8 to 6 and coming home. So it was a long day.
Yep. Gets to be that way.
Yeah.
You got to find someone else that can drive and you can watch wrestling.
Yeah, I know. All right.
Well,
usually I get to go through all the brackets. My wife's, able to sit there and give me who won and who's winning and who did what today. And then I'm kind of thinking in my mind what happened today. And, it's and actually there was, Kevin Velick had got some programs for the kids from Nebraska and Penn State, and he dropped them off to me. We actually stopped by his place on the way, and he gave them to the kids. And so we got a chance to look at those. The Penn State program is, I think it says $1 or $2 on it. It's a trifold. It's really cool. And he was in the room before the Nebraska duel with Kenny Rummel, and some of those guys went down there. And he asked Cale if he could have some of the guys sign the programs for the kids. And apparently Cale said, these guys are fat and angry. So no, that was before the Nebraska duel, but he was down there watching the duel. And something kind of cool. But so he was in the room before they were working out, and then I don't think Manning wanted to talk much after the duel, but he's always got good stories.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that was
good.
kind of cool. Yeah.
That's pretty good. I've had quite some experiences with some of those guys too along the way. First time I met Kevin Valek, I didn't know what to expect. It's like, okay, but he approached me like he knew me, and I didn't know Kevin. I didn't. He's all gung ho, and you name it, you got to do this, and boy, he's an ambassador for the sport. Big time.
He does more than people can imagine.
And he wants to be kind of not known, but yet known by the people that are involved, but not by other people. If you know what I mean. It's cool. I tell you what, South Dakota's got some great history to it, and the people that are involved. Like I said, every once in a while I get suggestions. I got to get someone like a Ken Rummel on. I got to get some of those guys on here, but they're so how can you say non-savvy? You almost got to set a computer in front of them so you can record them, or a camera. I wish I would have known earlier at the Aberdeen tournament that the old Redfield coach was there. I should have grabbed him.
Doug, right?
Fran. Oh no, I knew
Fran. Okay, Fran Esser. Yeah.
Fran got an award there for some special award, and I should have grabbed him and pulled him on. I didn't bring my stuff to record anything. I was too much of a parent that day, but I did go on with Jody for a while that does the sports ticket or whatever.
Yep.
And I broadcast with him for a while and just got on, and he's got quite the setup. I tell you what, he had the 4 cameras on, and we just talked, and I talked to the guy from Webster. Gosh, I got to remember his name. Guy does a lot of broadcasting stuff. Man, I'll think of it and I'll know. But the guy from Webster, super nice guy, was broadcasting for him, and he said if I come to Webster, I could stay at his house. So probably take him up on that. He's listening tonight. I need your phone number and address. No,
right.
No, I plan on coming down to Sioux Falls and probably be there sometime. I'm not going to catch you Thursday. I burn all my days as a teacher for my own son, but I'm going to get down there Friday.
Sure.
Bright and early. And you've got to catch some wrestling.
Well, like Rocky said, I mean,
the regional's right next door.
Yeah, you're going to be right next door to the region.
Well, I tell you what, this next Wednesday night when I go to the state, well, a week and a half away, I'll go see a Moorheads wrestling Wednesday night.
Is that the Moorhead Minot makeup match?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And so we're going to, as actually the Century team and everything's going to go there too. And so as soon as I get out and head toward Fargo, that's the first thing I'll be doing. I know the coaches will go over to the Dome, and they got to have their meetings and basically see they do lots of stuff at their meetings. They'll find if they want any rule changes. They have their coaches associating meeting. They nominate the new Hall of Fame members for the following year. So they'll be pretty busy, both Class A and Class B coaches. But we got Mason will be wrestling.
Yeah,
it's ranked and stuff. A Century wrestler.
Yeah.
So it'll be lots of good stuff.
Yeah.
More of the college stuff. Let's get a rundown. I'll let you go, Bill, because I am talking too much, and I'll just kind of fill in on the stuff because I watched a lot of college stuff this week.
Did you really? Well, I want to touch one more thing on that Gopher duel, just because I thought something that's happened here recently. They had a transfer come in at 133 pounds. You saw him wrestle today against RBY, but he is I don't know. He's about 7 feet tall. He's got to be the tallest 133 pounder in the country, but he just transferred in from a junior college. Boo Dryden. And I've watched him wrestle against Indiana, and he looked good. I mean, he's going to be a tough out for some guys. A guy like RBY that is going to shoot 97 times and is a pretty good quick finisher.
Right.
It's a tough deal, and he's not going to. But he could be a national qualifier.
Is he kind of like Ridge? Is he that?
Yeah. Actually, this is a time where you really wish that Lezak was still in the room to work with a guy like that. He wrestles a lot like Lezak, just not quite at that caliber.
Sure.
But he's yeah, he's pretty sneaky. So I kind of was interested to see that. He was a Kansas kid, couple times state champion, junior college All-American, maybe a national champion at junior college, in the junior college, I guess. So, so that was kind of neat. Watch the NDSU duel.
Yep, I watched the NDSU duel. And I tell you what, they're looking good.
They look really good. Yeah,
I expected, because that was actually on the Beck network on television.
Yeah,
that was on last at night, and I just happened to go right past it. My dad called me and said, "Hey, NDSU's on," and I kicked my wife out of the living room to watch on the big screen.
Yeah. It was also on Flow, so if you're ever looking, so you can always go back and rewatch it on Flow because they're all the Big 12 matches are on Flow. But they look good. I actually I watch a lot of those Fresno matches because they're generally they're all on Flow, so I'll go back. Right. There's a lot of those kids that I'm pretty familiar with. There's a couple of them that were on the Buchanan, California team that we dueled back in 2000 at the Clash. So it's kind of fun to see how they, have turned out once they pounded the heck out of us. Sikora, looks good. I don't believe you're going to see him at 25. I think that is.
I think those days are gone.
Yeah, I think he's and Franek wrestled good. I know what I want to talk about, but Fogarty is a beast. He's
gone up now some weight too. So
what's that?
He's going up some weight too.
No, that's Weber.
Oh, Weber. Weber went up to 84. Yeah, that's right.
74. Okay. 74. Yeah, he went up to 74. He's a 57 pounder. And he was the starting 57 pounder at the beginning of the year. He placed fourth at the scuffle. At 57.
He didn't look small at 74 either.
No, he did not look overpowered. And he's good. He's a Montana kid. Forsyth, Montana, I think that family's from. He transferred last year, and he was originally a Nebraska recruit. Spent a year and a half there. Transferred to NDSU last year and finished out the season at 57 for him, and looked really good. And I believe him and Franek probably had pretty close wrestle-off matches. And I was, being a Franek fan, I was a little nervous because I watched Luke Russell last year. I thought, man, he is going to be tough. And they, Franek, did win the spot, but now he's gone up to 174, and I thought he looked pretty good last night. And I will be interested to see how the problem is going to be. He's not going to have enough matches at that weight class to qualify a spot, so he's going to have to steal one at the Big 12 tournament. So, I hope he can. I would like to see him, get through there. Metz Russell's a pretty good guy. What's that?
I watched Metz almost take down the number 4. He threw him, but got no back points, and then lost in overtime. Earlier in the week. So, I expected a better match at him against the small guy from Sacramento, but he just didn't look very good. I didn't think Metz.
Yeah, Josh Hoke. It's an interesting story. He took third. He was an All-American last year at 197. He plays the entire football season. And did not come out to wrestling until the end of the season. So last year he cut down to 97. This year I think he's kind of planning on going to some combines. So he did not want to, cut weight. So they found a spot for him at heavyweight, and he could, I would.
That's why I love you, Bill. I did not know that.
Oh yeah. He's a really good linebacker. He actually played fullback and linebacker last year. For Fresno this year, they just had him at linebacker. And he played pretty good, and he's a guy that could make it to the league. So I
underestimated how good he was then. Actually,
yeah, he's a really good athlete. He is a really good wrestler. He was. Yeah, I don't know. Heavyweight's pretty deep and tough, but I kind of expect that he'll qualify. I mean, he'll qualify for sure. I kind of expect that he'll All-American. So that's a pretty tough kid. But Metz is big and Metz can move pretty good. So I kind of was hoping he'd have a chance. He had a chance obviously, but once Metz's only points were stall points, and I didn't completely. Those were not
Right.
you generally will see called in college. But
when I looked at the Big 12, the rankings wise, they've only gotten 2 or 3 heavyweights out of that conference the last couple of years, and so when I started to look, and now Metz has fallen out of probably about the 5th spot or so in that region. In fact, or that conference, I guess the way you want to call it, because that Orndorff or whatever.
Yep.
And then there was that Isley from Northern Iowa.
Yep.
And I missed Hokit somehow, from Fresno, but now he's got to be in the mix.
Yeah.
Gremmel, who is in there, and
Colorado. From Iowa State.
Yeah, Iowa State.
Yep.
Yep. And then you keep going. There was that
Northern Colorado kid. I can't think of the top of his name, but he beat Metz at the scuffle.
Yep, that Robertson.
Yep, Robertson. Yep,
Robertson.
Yep.
Something like that.
Yep.
And so
he's tough.
And so Metz has got. I thought that he might have a chance to qualify this year early on, and he's going to have a heck of a day.
Yep. Yeah. No, he will. He'll have a good tournament.
Yep, definitely. So what? I still am. It's a mystery to me on how they pick how many qualify. I know that the Big Ten usually gets their 8 to 9 guys. Sometimes out of certain weights. It's not set. Some weights might get 8, some might get 9, some, and all depends on how they rank and how they go nationwide.
They use PowerPoints just like the South Dakota duels. It's really, it is. It's based on your strength of schedule. It really is. I mean, it's a RPI.
Mm-hmm.
As a guy qualifies his spot by his record and the record of his opponents, then they'll say, okay, well, these guys would fit in the top, 24.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're in the Big 12, that's a spot that goes to the Big 12. If you're in the EWIA, it goes to the EWIA. So that's kind of how it ends up. But
now, Tom, you're close to Wyoming. You said that one of your wrestlers is going to wrestle for Wyoming.
Yes.
Bill, what do you know about the Wyoming wrestling team? College.
They're pretty good. They've got a really good 33-pounder that took a loss this week, Montori Bridges. He's one that Cam Sikora will have to. I mean, he's one that's going to earn a spot, and he's a tough out at the Big 12 tournament. They've got a pretty good 84-pounder.
One kid I saw wrestle in high school at their old Rhapsody Invite that's on that team is Hayden Hastings.
Yes,
and he got round of 12 or round of 16 last year, maybe.
Yep.
Wasn't he close?
Yep.
But yeah, the kid that we've got, Cooper Voorhees, his dad wrestled at Wyoming, and he probably wouldn't want me to say this, but because he doesn't ever like to talk about himself, but he was a 2-time state champion in South Dakota for Sturgis, and he actually wrestled Bono the year that Bono won a national title, and he lost 5-3 in the quarters, and I think he ended up 7th, and I think that was the year it was in Minneapolis. But he All-American for Wyoming at about 150. And
that would have been Bono's weight. Yep.
Yeah, about 96, I think it was ish. So, and then, and he was looking at, a few South Dakota schools and ended up with Branch and company out there. So he's excited to go out there and give it a go. He's currently undefeated, and he got to wrestle the kid that's the 2nd-ranked kid in the state this weekend for Madison, the Menace kid. And I think that's their 2nd matchup this year. And he looked good again this weekend. And he's a 2-time preseason All-American, and he's a tough kid and good gas tank. And, he's one of those kids that doesn't stop attacking. And, it takes some time to get comfortable doing that, but he's at a stage in his career that he keeps doing that. And, it's kind of like the Tanafu kids that you never get time to set up your shot because they're always in your face. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And those kids are tough to wrestle,
Yep.
So,
it'd be good to see him out there. I think, so when you go back, Wyoming, they went through a little stretch there. They won a handful of pretty good duels in a row. And then they actually lost to Fresno before Fresno came to NDSU, and they got handed pretty bad by Oklahoma State the other day. And so, I'm sure that they're Coach Branch will be all over him. He's a pretty good coach. He's really an interesting guy. Billy actually took a visit to Wyoming. Really, really liked it there. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up in school there at some point. He really likes that area and liked the school, and he may end up with some extra schooling.
There was kind of a funny tweet out there from somebody today with Branch. I don't know if you saw it, but about him talking about losing a team point.
Yep.
Fighting for a kid, and how the basketball coaches and the football coaches, they yell and scream and probably say things they're not supposed to. And I thought it was an interesting take from him. I mean,
it is. It's kind of become a big deal here recently. There's the Flow guys have been talking about it, and a bit before this week, and sure enough, you go back a week and seems like forever ago, but that Nebraska duel against Ohio State, they had 2 team points taken away.
Right. Yeah. And I think Iowa lost one against Penn State. I mean, now some of that could be a little bit bench control and some of that, but
it is for sure. And Brands is they're going to lose them because they completely lose their minds. But Tom Brand said afterwards, he just said we got to be better than that. But there is something to be said about that, right? I mean, a kid goes out and gets a tech fall, earns everything he's done, and then because the coach walks on the mat or something, not as and maybe it is words, but it doesnn't take a lot, and they end up losing team points.
Right.
I thought that was so. It wasn't a bad take. The other thing that was, I'll tell you what, I'm just going to talk about it because it was crazy to watch. I watched a duel Friday night against Upper Iowa and Mankato State. They had 2 referees for a duel, which we don't always see in a Division II duel. Upper Iowa is a tough place to wrestle. It's a real small gym. They're right on top of the mat, and they want to kill you. And they're all over it. But so it was probably I thought, and these refs are refs I know. I mean, I've seen them at they're both guys that'll be at the D2 national tournament, possibly at the D1 national tournament. I see them reffing all over the country.
Right.
And I bet they went back and looked at the video replay 15 times.
Oh, wow.
in the night. And not all of them were challenges by the coaches. Most of them were challenges where they looked at and said, hey, let's go look at that.
Oh.
And you had coaches in their ears. I never saw there was not one single bench warning. They just completely lost control of the match, and it was the duel took 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
I'm trying to get over to watch the Wisconsin-Iowa duel, and this duel, because that started late, and this duel lasted 2 hours. And
I watched the part of the Augie duel on Friday night. We had the Rapid City kid wrestling Kobe Cost, and we got to Yankton, and I'm like, hey, we got a little time here before we go out to eat, and so I fired that up. Just one guy officiating that, there's a lot more space there and how they got that set up. But 2 guys at Upper Iowa. Why'd they have 2?
I have no idea, but I don't know if it would have been better or worse. But it was a mess. It was just absolute train wreck.
Right.
But that's an interesting subject. The team points being lost. I think it's something they could take a look at. Whether it's tee them up and give them a yellow card like they would do in the Olympic styles and eject the coach. If that's what you need to do instead of taking an earned team point away.
And I think I don't know this, and somebody asked me about it this weekend. If like a high school coach gets a team point deduction, I think if he gets 2 back to back,
misses the next event.
I think he misses the next event. Yeah.
Out for that day. Yep. 2.
Yep. No, I can tell you of a regional tournament not that long ago where a team lost a team point, and at the end of the day, which early round match, lose and the regional tournament came down to we were second by 1/2 point.
Oh yeah. Oh. Yeah.
So it was very interesting. I mean, it's a step on the mat. It's a very quiet coach, but it was really something.
Well, when we do the Rapid City invite, for example, we're always, usually Frank is the head referee, Pavich, and we usually make the coaches boxes, and I always get the tape measure out to make sure that we're within spec. And I'm always worried he's going to pull his out to check me out. And then we go out to Montana, and there's no coaches boxes to speak of. There's guys walking on the mat that are up in 3, and coaches coaching from wherever. I mean, it was the Wild West out there. Not to say that that's bad. I'm just saying it's different from what we're used to. It seemed like we were held a little bit more accountable to some of that stuff. But you never know who you're going to get. Some guys can take more than others.
Well, absolutely. And I've John's been around the North Dakota for a long time, and there's coaches that are refs that take absolutely nothing, and there's refs that they kind of have a deaf ear, but I know that Dakota was reffing a match. It was a few years ago now, maybe it was 16 or so, that a duel between Bono was still there, but South Dakota State and North Dakota State and it was in the that
arena.
What's that? No, it was in the little facility there. Darn it! What the heck?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Probably the facility that we have state youth in, maybe, or
no. It was at NDSU.
Oh, okay.
And what the heck is that little building there that they wrestled in, volleyball played in for a few years while they were building?
There's another little hall beside.
Yeah, right there. And they have stuff in there for Fargo. Guys work out in there, but oh man, Justin was just getting railed by both coaches all day long, and it was like I'm not sure he wants to come back and do another Big 12 match.
I wonder how much Pavich does. Because I saw him on one of the duels I watched this year. Trying to think who that was. Frank.
He does some Wyoming for sure.
I just saw one duel.
I think he's done Oklahoma State, or he's done some of the Big 12. Yeah. And so he does a lot. Or he seems to do a lot. He doesn't do as much high school. I think he does, some, but I think he enjoys the college circuit now with his kid not wrestling anymore, and he's doing his thing. But
a couple things like Rip Ripplinger does some college stuff now.
Yep.
And they ref a little bit different after they've done that.
Correct. Yep.
And they take it at a little bit different level. They think it's still college. And we had Rick this last weekend in the Bismarck High Century duel, and he did a good job for the majority of the part, but there were times where it got a little rough. And in high school, you usually stop it, or where it's potentially dangerous instead of slapping it off like you do in college sometimes.
Yeah.
You probably needed to do that in a couple matches. Bismarck High's so tough. They've got 7 number 1s right now in the state of North Dakota, and probably 9 or 10 in the top 3. There's nobody stopping them but themselves pretty much for the state of North Dakota.
Right.
But Rick and I'll talk to him a little bit. He's a good friend.
Yeah.
But I think the crowd was getting on him a little bit in the Century duel because they were getting pounded pretty bad.
Yeah. Well, Rick's a good ref. He did. He doesn't do a lot of. I wish he'd do more. He did do 2. He did do. Minot had him up there for a couple duels in a row. When we dueled Minot, when Northern was up there, we had Dakota, and he did a really good job. He does a nice job. So.
He did Mandan. I remember he did my son's semifinal, I think, in Mandan this year, and he was obviously at the Rotary, and I mean, so it's not getting any easier. I mean, it's tougher. There's tougher to find good officials. They just made their state selections recently in South Dakota, and there's some guys that are disappointed, and it's different because some of the guys will go East River that live West River and ref a lot of B stuff. And there's the challenge in South Dakota is I think each coach gets 10 votes. Well, there's only 32 or 33 A teams, and there's 50 some B teams. So I think, and some of the referees, may have grown up in a smaller town or be from that area, so they tend to do more. But to be honest with you, there's more votes on the B side to get in.
Oh, sure.
So it's a little bit more advantageous for some of those guys to shake hands and kiss some babies over on the east side of the state, so to speak. And there's still great wrestling on that side. And there's A teams at a lot of B tournaments. It's not uncommon to to get in there and you don't really hurt yourself, but you get a chance to wrestle. There were some some good matchups this weekend. So, but it's harder and harder, and then you get somebody really new. There isn't a lot of guys in the middle. There's some really good guys, and then there's some guys starting out. They're a little experienced, and it's getting harder and harder.
Definitely.
Yep.
And as guys retire, you got to pull up new guys.
Right.
Yeah, and that's hard to do. I mean, I know that these Justin would be one. They're recruiting all the time, trying to get young refs to come in, and I have definitely seen some around. We had one, at Carrington this weekend. It's not brand new. He's been around for a few years, but he's definitely a younger guy. So it was nice to see him there.
Right.
The regional duels were in Carrington.
Quick question: how far do you think it is before high school does the 4-point near fall? Do you think that's possible? It really makes a huge difference in college.
Yeah, I don't know. I love it. I think it's awesome. But
I don't know. It's the riding time thing. I'm frankly, I'm not a big fan of it because it tends to be a lot of stalling. And I think that, if you can't turn somebody, there's just a lot of that many more closer matches. And the best kids, like a Spencer Lee, for example, he's going to go after you nonstop, but you don't always see that. I could see the danger rule coming into high school before I could probably see a 4-point near fall.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
I don't know.
I think I think that may have been a trade-off. I obviously wasn't in the room, but there's always going to be a discussion of taking riding time away. I mean, there's a group of people that always are going to want to do it, and I think this was a way to try to increase the reward for making the risk of turning someone.
Sure.
And there's no doubt it's helped. What I've seen, at least in my eyes, and maybe the math would show different, but from what I've watched, people are way more active on top than they used to be.
Right.
There's no doubt. And I don't mind riding time. I think at one point I did, but I'm not a real big fan of someone just as a stall ride, but you don't see as much of that as you did. You don't, although you will see in most cases, it's going to be, the stalls are going to be called on the bottom man.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you see even in high school.
Yeah.
And it's, you get a guy that's riding the hips and fiddling around with the wrists, and the bottom guy gets dinged. And, and even, kind of in North Dakota, if you take down, most of the North Dakota refs are like, well, that's your choice. But if he's going to ride an ankle for the whole period, I don't care. Get out.
Yeah. And it now the two other rules that they've put in on the college side, you drop to that ankle, it's a 5 count and then it's a stall. So that's change that. The side headlock, another one that you get that side headlock locked up. That you could call that the Stephen Monk rule. He did it. That's used that to become an All-American, and the next year that was changed. So
right.
There was no doubt that's a stall ride. And
it's harder in high school, especially for inexperienced refs, or
absolutely
to call that. And even if you've got a couple really good kids, talented kids, highly ranked kids, you see some guys set the tone right away. I saw Stabner give a double stall call this weekend, and I'm like, that's the second time I've seen that. And you kind of smile when you see that. He's like, both of you guys get to work here. And it wasn't even a heavyweight match.
Yeah, I saw one not that long ago, and it must have been in a call. It was at Lisbon. It was at the Store Hog. It was the vaunted double stall. I just laughed. I thought that is awesome. I haven't seen that in a long time, but it's warranted sometimes for sure.
Yeah. It's just, I kind of smirked, and I'm like, well, at least he's paying attention here and kind of getting him going. So it was kind of funny, and it was deserved,
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's
How has the stalling calls been in South Dakota?
Pardon me?
How has the stalling calls been in South Dakota?
I don't know. It depends on who you ask.
What's interesting is the Aberdeen tournament. I only saw 3 calls the whole weekend. I think people would like to see it called more. And I think the other thing that I've seen, and I'm not judging anybody per se, but, it's sometimes it seems like they take their time. And I noticed at the Rotary, for example, a lot of those guys are counting on their way to count back points on their way there.
but with some of the officials, that they don't necessarily, get around and get down there and start counting. And sometimes they're more apt to get to 5 versus pinning a kid. And it's like, you don't have to get to 5.
Right.
you could pin somebody. And so I think, you see a little bit of that where maybe they don't think they're pinned because they're upright or they're on the other side, and maybe they don't get around. But overall it's good. I think it depends on the referee and the match. I mean, you kind of get a feel for what kids are doing. I did see a fleeing the mat called this week, and a kid tried to kick out and dove out of bounds. I think you appreciate that kind of stuff, but it's it's a tough job. I mean, those guys, especially in those leg pass positions like we talked about earlier, it's hard to know who's in control, or when they drop to the ankle, they start counting, and 5 seconds left in the match, that's what you do, but
right. Yeah.
I think a lot of fans would like to see more because they want to see action. But I think some of these high school kids watch enough college where, not the top guys, but the good guys, and they're all good, but they're not as active, in college. And I think that rubs off on some of the high school kids a little bit, in my opinion.
Yep. Oh yeah. I see it.
Yep.
But I tell you what, there is a huge, it's always subjective for stalling.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. But one of these things, I don't think a referee needs to control the match to his style. When kids are wrestling, you can tell when somebody's not doing something. Laying on the bottom and doing the old Greco, throwing their arms out, just basically so they don't get halved or turned. Not ever trying to stand up from bottom, just basically blocking everything. I think that's a huge difference. They're not trying to sit out, not trying to switch. And then there's the domination, which is also still in the high school rule book. If a kid's getting dominated and just trying to save himself, that isn't stalling too, because there's a difference in that scenario.
Well, and it'll be interesting to see, and again, it's a tough call, and you don't want to. I mean, I wouldn't want to call it too early. You don't want to call it too late. You don't want to cost a kid a match on a stall call. I've seen that this year, but with the state duels and not giving up the extra bonus points, it'll be interesting to see how they ref that, maybe different from an individual tournament, because there's going to be kids, and you don't want to be the coach that says, don't go out and get pinned, but don't go out and get pinned. You know what I mean? Or don't get tacked to. So it'll be interesting to see if the reffing is a little bit different from that. And I would assume not, but I don't know. I mean, kids are going to wrestle a little bit different in a duel, I think, because, the points matter where, if you're in the state tournament and you don't feel that good and you got a match and you're up by 4 and you take bottom in the third period, you might not be as apt to want to stand up right away because you're going to kill some time.
Yep.
Definitely. Are they going to double referee the dual matches down there?
Well, they did a thing last year where they basically just intermingled them. So there isn't necessarily A refs and B refs. They're all together. And normally the guy that's the head ref doesn't really ref that much. Mm-hmm. They usually try to get a younger guy to do that, to kind of, be a part of that. So, they did make a rule this year, which was interesting, that if you're a wrestler, if you have a family member, a son or daughter that's wrestling, or even a manager on the team affiliated, you can't ref the state tournament. And I had heard this year that Rick Fink is one of the better officials in the state of South Dakota and does a lot of college too. He was going to be reffing, Billy, at the region for you guys. And he asked to ref Friday, I think, and Thursday, but not Saturday.
Oh.
And they wouldn't let him. And I'm like, I mean, he's one of the better guys in the state. And it's like, you'd like to see guys like that there, You kind of know if your kid's in the finals or a tough match,
right?
And you see the guy come out, you're like, all right, I'm glad it's him. I kind of, I've seen him ref, I trust him, but you get the new guy, you're like, boy, we're gonna have to score a lot of points here. We want to pin, Right. So, and again, not taking anything away from those guys, it's a tough job, and they do a great job, but it's tougher today.
No, but
absolutely.
They always said that they drew in South Dakota. But it always would be somebody like Chet Jones having the heavyweights.
Yeah.
year after year, I said I could almost pick out the guys for certain finals matches. It's like they draw a hat, but then decide I'm going to switch. That's my match.
Right. Yeah. No, and I think they enjoy it, and they probably reffed a lot of those kids, so they know what to expect if a kid's a little bit more aggressive or if they get in some scrambles. So, that experience probably goes a long way. If they see those kids during the year and you've got a couple kids from the northeast part of the state and you've got a guy that's done a lot of those tournaments, I think that's the guy you want in there,
Right.
quite frankly,
Well, one more shout out high school wise, got to go get the old polar bear up to 67 pins in a row right now.
Correct. Yeah.
Supposedly tied the USA national record this weekend at 67. So I didn't know if it was the national record yet, but it sounds like it is. I saw that.
Well, I think his dad posted something. He might be tied for third.
Oh, tied for third now? Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know how many he's got left. He was at the Big Dakota this weekend.
Well, yeah, I think they've got a duel yet this week, and then they've got regions. He'll have 3 state, another and I don't know if they'll make the duel. So.
No, I don't know that. No. I don't know where they're at for numbers, but I don't think. Yeah, I don't know that they'll make the duels.
Right, I don't think so either. So I think really when I look at the Class A, he's probably got 7 matches left.
Yeah,
8 maybe.
Right.
Maybe he could hit 75. The good thing I'll have to ask his dad what it looks like for matches left. And
right.
But other than that, I tell you what. I look down at the South Dakota stuff. There's still some studs that are undefeated, and it's going to be a barn burner all the way through at state,
Well, I noticed this weekend, and I mean, there's obviously that top tier talent across the state, but boy, there's a lot more closer matches. Kids are getting better, and kids are banged up, nicked up, and it wasn't necessarily about bonus this weekend. It was about just getting back, surviving and advancing. It was one of those weekends where you could hurt yourself a little bit, but just win. And, if you can get bonus, fine, but, get out there and do your job and get past it.
Definitely.
So, yeah.
Definitely. Okay. Well, Bill, what do you want to say yet? What else do you want to talk about?
I got one last thing. WCW Women's Collegiate Wrestling Association National Tournament was this weekend at Life University in Georgia.
Yep. Jamestown.
7
All-Americans.
What's that?
7
All-Americans. Yeah, they took third as a team. Campbellsville kind of ran away with it, but Jamestown was right in there. They had one finalist at 191 pounds or something, whatever weight that is. So Agatha Andrews is her name. She took second. I watched her finals match. So that was kind of nice to see. There's going to be a bunch of those, women will end up in Jamestown here.
Now, how is the pace? I haven't watched the women wrestle. I'm broadcasting it in Jamestown, so I'm going to have to catch up exactly on a lot of that for Beck when the Nationals come.
Yep.
Maybe, Bill, you should join me in Jamestown that day.
I might. Yeah. Yep. If I don't have something else really, really pressing going on, I probably will be there.
That's impossible for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll find a way to get you in, and that's because I got one other guy I'm broadcasting with.
Yep.
And get in there.
I'll pay the entry fee. I'm all for supporting it, but I'll be there. Yeah, I think. But I think that's after all the D1 nationals and everything. So
right.
I definitely I kind of plan on being there. So
okay.
At that tournament, they also had some wrestle-offs for this women's senior level to see who was going to represent the United States at the Pan American Games or the Pan American qualifier. I'm trying to, we still have some weights to qualify for the Olympic team. So just to be able to qualify for the Olympics. And probably the biggest one coming out of that is Helen Maroulis, 2016 gold medalist and couple-time world champion, was back. First time she's wrestled in 15 months. And she won the wrestle-off, had to wrestle 2 out of 3 in the final. She had to wrestle one match, and then she had to wrestle 2 out of 3 in the finals against Jenna Burkett and won that in 2 matches. So she looks really almost as good as ever. So Hard to say that. I mean, the last time she wrestled in the national champ or world championships, I don't know anybody scored a point on her. She was dominant. So I'm really glad to see her back. So that qualifier will be, I think it's the week between Big Tens and nationals. So that'll be in Montreal. Ottawa, Canada. That's where it is.
Yep, and it was in Canada.
Yep. So that was good to see. Some good stuff from the women, and like I said, good to see Jamestown do that. Not all of those teams that will be there, at the WCWA will be in Jamestown, but it'll be all of the NAIA schools will be there. So they'll be good. Emily Shilson, the girl that I've kind of watched, you've probably seen her over the years too, but she's a girl that grew up. We'd see her at Northern Plains and see her in Fargo and tournaments all over the place, kind of from a young age. I mean, I remember watching her. She had an older brother that wrestled too, but she's at Augsburg down in Minneapolis, and she was a national champ at 50 kilograms probably, or however it's like 100 pounds or 101 pounds. Yep. So that was nice to see that. Augsburg, I think, had a couple national champs. So that's obviously that's a D3 program, not a NAI school, but they will. I think is that their first or second year as a women's. I think it's their first year. So that was good to see. I watched all the finals. I watched a few other matches. That was it.
Yep, got your 24 hours in this weekend of wrestling.
Yeah, pretty close. I spent the day at regional duels, so that was fun.
Hard to get more than that in.
Yep,
definitely. Well, tell us just a little bit, Carrington. They must have looked good. Just give one more shout out to them because being region champs.
Yeah, they look pretty good. I was. They wrestled really, really well against both Central Cass and Pembroke County North. That Pembroke County North duel. There was probably one match we would have kind of liked to see the result go the other way. Besides that, everything kind of went as well as you could expect. What's that?
How did Erlob look?
Erlob looked okay. He's got he wrestled against us against a pretty green kid. So but he looked good, and that was his only. He didn't wrestle another match of the day. He's kind of on a proverbial pitch count. And he did not wrestle in their. They had to wrestle a true second match, but they handled Central Cass pretty well, and Erlob didn't wrestle in that one. But he looks good. I talked to his dad a little bit, and I told him I was a little surprised that he went down to 45, and he said that it was Tanner's decision. He could have been, at any weight, that he wanted really, and he said, I think I can make it. So he went to 45, and so, he's been out the whole season until, last week. So, but he'll, I think right after the season's over, the next week he's having surgery. So, he looked pretty good. I thought, probably a shout out to Tristan Lura, wrestled a, pretty good kid from Pembroke County North. Maybe he's a third ranked kid in the state. So that's a 2-3 ranking probably at this point. And Tristan wrestled good, won that match, got his 100th win. So that was a nice thing to see. And Breck and Lura looked good. Oh, another one, really at 120 pounds, Matthew Dukeshire got a pin there, and that's sure, that's a good kid from Pembroke County North there too. So that was not a guarantee that something like that's going to happen. So kind of everything that could go right did. It was kind of fun. I got to see a few kids I haven't seen. I haven't seen a team like Grafton all year, and I could not tell you the kid's name. They've got a 106 pounder that is a seventh grader and is scrappy. I mean, it was actually fun to watch. He's one that I'm going to kind of. I did his name. I think. Oh man, his name might be Burns. But I was really impressed.
First name Matt.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, Matt.
Matt Burns. I don't know.
Yeah. That might be his older brother. God dang it! I should find his name because I was pretty impressed with that little guy. He really wrestled hard, and it was just fun to see some of these kids. I don't get to see Uh,
I used to give Hazen By a hard time that his brother was Joe By. You know,
yeah, right. Yeah. Well, there was a whole lot of buys from South Dakota.
Yeah.
They were
That's
never.
That's the buy you didn't want in your
That
bracket.
was the buy you didn't want to get in your bracket.
That buy, yep, the buy is there.
Yep, you didn't want that one. So, but yeah, that was it was a good tournament. It was nice to have it in the new school. It's been a long time since we've, first big tournament like that we've had since.
I have not seen the new gym yet. I'll have to make it.
Yeah, it looked good. We can talk about later in the week. We talked about the region individuals coming up, but that's Region 2 is in Central Cass. So,
well, I'll be going back to Watford City. Phenomenal facility. I mean, the new Watford City school, and they've got a community center, and this thing looks like, I don't even know a building in North Dakota looks as nice as this for a community center that they hold all their events in now. It's got 2 sheets of ice for a small town. It's got basketball. It's got the wrestling area. It was insane. They had just the one gym was available just for wrestling in the what I still consider somewhat of a small town, but not as much as it used to be, Watford City. Frank Fish, talked to him for quite a while. He's helping out run the tournament. He's another guy that I talked to if he could try to get him on sometime and visit with him.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yep.
He's been at every state wrestling tournament. This will be his 58th or 59th. He's been at all the state wrestling tournaments or something like that that anybody can remember. But he told me it's 58 in a row or 59 or whatever it is, state tournaments in a row.
Wow.
And he has been retired for many years, but they talk him into driving the bus. And so he drives the bus still, and he was just going to do the state tournament, but then he gets the call to go out to Sydney, and then he gets to drive the bus to this other tournament, and then to here. And so he goes, guess what? I get paid to go watch wrestling. And so
perfect.
He's pretty cool. He's got some great stories. Family loves wrestling. Always admired them as a family because they tight knit. Good friends with his daughters. He had 2 daughters. I don't know why I didn't marry into that family, wrestling people. But
all right, that's all I got.
Yep, definitely. But love it, guys. We've gone almost 2 hours tonight, and I know I could talk a lot longer. Just love it, Tom. Yeah, anytime possible. Love having you on, and probably set you past your bedtime.
Oh no, we're an hour behind.
You're early out there.
Yeah.
Earlier, not later. Yeah. But do appreciate it, guys. Guys that are watching again, thanks again for coming in. We'll have more talking. I'm going to try to make it on again Wednesday, anytime this week. If Bill, you want to get on, I'll get on. This is an easy week for me because we're just regionals. There's no duels anytime during the week. Basically, it'll be just getting ready for the big time, for the big show.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay.
Yep. Good luck.
See you Wednesday. Have a great night.
You bet. Have a good night, guys.
Yep, thanks.
See ya.